Hello, this is week 8 of H.E.L.P program, and today we having a webinar run by Jackie Meek, who is a life coach, and we will be talking about our relationships. And I believe during the webinar we're going to look into how we relate to other people and how it affects us, and then potentially what we can do about it if we do want to make a change or amendment to our relationships. And especially during the COVID situation, our relationship had another layer of distress, I guess, or constraint that could throw different effects on how we relate to others and how we communicate with others. So I think this will be really helpful to help us to reflect on it and potentially make some difference. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you very much.
To have you here. As usual, we're going to have a short presentation and then we will have some time left for questions. If some people join and they ask questions, they could ask directly. If not, I'll come up with some questions myself. I'll switch off my video and I'll mute myself so we give you, Jackie, the full screen. Are you okay to share your presentation?
Yes, I was going to start off just by talking initially before I put the presentation up, so I'll do a little intro first and then...
Okay, no worries. I'm switching off my video and I'm muting myself, but I'm still here.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much for that introduction, Patty, and it's a real pleasure to be here this evening talking about this topic of relationships. So I gave Patty a few ideas of things I could talk about, and this was the one that she felt was most relevant. And in fact, we've already been talking tonight about how important relationships are, particularly in the run up to Christmas. I've just had quite a difficult conversation with my brother this evening about how we're going to do Christmas with my parents. And, you know, that can happen at any time, but Christmas seems to magnify relationship problems. And I think that's why it's really important to take some time to look at relationships now and to set some intentions about what really matters to you about your relationships, which ones are important and which ones are serving you well and which ones perhaps you need to let go of or to put some boundaries in place. So thank you, Patty, for inviting me tonight. Just by way of introduction, I'll just say a little bit about myself. Before I do that, it would be good if you can have a sheet of A4 paper or a large notebook, as I will be asking lots of questions tonight and inviting you to draw your own circle of relationship. It can be quite big, so it's better to have it on a sheet of A4 paper rather than a small notebook. So if you can grab some paper while I'm doing an introduction, that would be great. So my name's Jackie Meek and I'm mum to a 10 and a 12-year-old, and I also have an angel in heaven. I've been a life coach since 2016, and while I was on my coaching course I had to do some role play, and during that role play I had a very clear picture about talking in the playground to other mums, and that's where my passion for coaching mums really started. And I've got quite a difficult birthing story. I gave birth very prematurely at 27 weeks. I lost a baby, I had postnatal depression and purple psychosis. So I can come alongside mums in some of the more challenging experiences that they've had. And that's why I do what I do. And I really value my story to enable me to come alongside other mums and to help them to really flourish in everything that they do. So this webinar I first did in the first lockdown back in June, July time, I think, because I really felt that there was a need for people to look at their relationships. And I delivered this webinar to some of my group coaching programs that I run, and the impact was big. Which is why I felt it would be very timely to do this again, just as we've come out of lockdown. Part of me wants to say I'm no different to you. Everybody has challenges in their relationships. Everybody has a skeleton in their cupboard. Nobody's free completely from difficult or conflicting relationships. So I'm no different to you, but I do have some really great tools to help you to look at your relationships. And that's what I want to share with you today. When lockdown first started, there seemed to be that pressure to who are you going to get in contact with? Who are you going to speak to regularly? How often are you going to chat to your parents? What's going to happen if you can't visit your parents overseas? So there was a whole lot of dynamics going on. And I think that's still the case now, particularly with Christmas coming up. You know, what is it going to look like in the situation that we're facing now? So let me share my screen. So, love and support, the circle of relationship. So an overview for this evening, we're going to look at the circle of relationship, and then you'll have an opportunity to draw your own circle of relationship. Then we'll be auditing your circle of relationship, then assessing your capacity to help others, and then identifying your priorities and next steps. So this circle of relationship, it's not an easy exercise to do, but it is very valuable. Relationships often just happen, and some will have thrived during lockdown and others may have become strained. But drawing your circle of relationship enables you to look at your relationships holistically, and by increasing your awareness of them, you're enabled to be more intentional about them. So it'll be clear where to invest more and where to invest less. So this is what you'll be drawing as a kind of as a map. This person has drawn people on theirs, which you really don't need to do, although some people, if you're creative, you can do that. But this is what we're working towards, a circle of relationships such as this. So drawing your circle of relationship, if you can take your A4 sheet of paper and start by drawing a small circle in the middle and write me in the circle. And then next, draw 4 additional circles around the smaller one, each getting larger, just as the previous slide showed. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then if you can label the circles, so you should have 5 circles in total. The middle one says me, and then intimacy on the next circle, wider family, friends and community. Okay, I think the next slide is to write the names of people in those 5 categories. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that, and just empty your mind of all the people who come to mind. So looking at those in the intimate circle. So that could be your partner or children or a best friend, or you might put your parents in the intimate circle. And then going on to the wider family, putting all their names in. Cousins, aunts and uncles, if you want to put them on there. You don't have to put, if you want to leave certain people off, that's fine. I'm not that close with my cousins, so they don't feature on my circle of relationship. My godchildren do, because they're very important to me. And some friends might be in the intimacy circle, and some friends might be a bit further out in the community, for example. So I'm going to set my timer for 4 minutes now, so that you've just got time to write those things. maybe that you have some close friends who are colleagues in the community section, or neighbours that you're particularly close to. And think of friends that are perhaps old and distant, so perhaps people that you were close to but you're not now. Maybe you're in contact with them, or maybe not. Maybe you're only in contact with them at Christmas. Okay, so you've got about a minute left. Okay, I hope you've had time to write those. If you need more time, you can pause the recording and add to the list. So we're going to start auditing your circle of relationship now, and I'd like you to firstly think about me, you in the middle. So this is, you know, you're in the center because you're the most important part of the circle of relationship. And to put yourself in the center is to ensure that you're looking after your mental and physical well-being. So having energy, enthusiasm, patience and motivation are not bottomless wells. So you can't keep taking, you must take regular action to fill your reserves. Everyone is different, so they fill their reserves in different ways. For some, they may need solitude and silence. For others, they may need activity with others. So I'd like you to have a think about what actions can you take to recharge. So just jot them down somewhere, perhaps put an arrow, or on another sheet of paper, just write down a couple of actions that you could take to recharge. And if you want to write them, yeah, just write those down, whatever you can think of, what actions can you take to recharge. And then it'd be great if you could share on the chat box one thing you're already doing to recharge. So practicing gratitude, having a flat white at Costa, that's a great idea. Blow drying your hair, putting on some makeup, taking a bath, lots of great ideas there. Listening to a podcast or lighting a candle and just taking some time out. I like to paint my nails. That's my thing as a recovering nail biter. It's something that I like to do that helps me recharge and make sure I'm taking care of myself. A good comedy, yeah, that's a great idea too. Something to make you laugh. Speaking to my best friend, that's a great way for me to recharge, having a good conversation. Sleep sometimes, taking exercise, prioritizing exercise. So lots of different things there. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. No, before we do that, just a couple of other questions. Just consider how emotionally well you are at the moment. Oh, another idea there, a long walk whilst listening to music. Yes, that sounds lovely. What a great idea. Great thing to do. So how emotionally well are you? Just consider that question. And how stable is your own mental health? Is there something else that you could be doing to stabilize that or to improve that? What help do you need in order to be emotionally well? What help could you get practically or logistically, for example? And who in your circle could you ask to support you a bit more? I've agreed since the first lockdown to chat to one of my best friends who lives away once a week. And we have a 1 hour slot on a Friday evening from 8 till 9. And we both really look forward to that time together. We ring fence it, make sure we're not interrupted and we're committed to it. And that's a real highlight of my week, to talk to her. And that really helps me with my emotional well-being as well. And if you have a faith, where is God in your circle of relationship? Do you put him in the center with you, or is he as a friend or part of a community? Whereabouts does he fit in the closeness of your circle? Is there any other questions around the me, or anything else you'd like to note around the me? Just post it in the chat. Okay, so we'll move on to the intimacy, the next level. So who is in your intimate circle? And when we're talking about intimacy, we're looking at emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical intimacy. So who is in that intimate circle? And what is the quality of your relationship like with those? So are there some areas that you would like to do more? So what is your quality time like with your partner, for example? What is your quality time like with your children? And does that flag up any areas that you'd like to do things differently? One of my clients in one of my groups coaching programs, she, as a result of this webinar, carved out time for her children, 3 children, individually, so that she has one-to-one time with them once a week. And she was very intentional about doing that as a result of the webinar, knowing that they needed her individual attention. And that has really helped her relationship with them and their behavior too. So is there anything you'd like to do more of with these friends and people in your intimate circle? Is there anything you need to do less of in this circle? And are your needs being met by these people who are in your intimate circle? And when can you be the real you? Because being with these people is when you want to be the real you, not performing, not trying to be a certain way, but showing up as the real you. And my friend and I, we have a great saying for that. It's when you're flawsome. So you're awesome, but you also have flaws. So when can you be flawsome with these people who are in your intimate circle? Okay. So moving out to the next three circles: wider family, friends and community. And I realise these might be, they might intertwine. So you might have some friends that are closer to you in the centre, some community people closer to you in the centre. But wider family are often complicated. It's important to manage expectations, and it's not all about giving or all about taking. So it can be useful to establish boundaries with wider family. So what can you commit to that is appropriate for your situation in terms of connecting? So if your mum wants to speak to you every day, is that actually possible? Is that not possible? You know, is that an unreasonable demand or pushing a boundary that's not appropriate? So what is it that you can commit to with wider family so that you can manage expectations? And then friends, how are you connecting with your friends? My husband is an introvert, so he can count the number of friends he has on one hand, and he probably sees them once a year, if that. Whereas I'm an extrovert, so my friends are much more important to me. I get my energy from my friends, so I need to connect with them in a very different way to him. And it is knowing yourself and knowing what you need to find the right balance. Again, with the pandemic, we can't meet in a social way like normal. So can you arrange for walks with friends? Can you sit on a bench somewhere outdoors with a group of friends? You know, what is it that you can do to stay socially distanced but still get your need for connection met? And then community, I think perhaps community has changed in lockdown in that we've all been stuck at home, and we've done more community things perhaps in our neighbourhood, or got to know our neighbours a bit better. But also we've had less community with clubs not being run and social gatherings not possible. So there's lots of things that we're missing out on as well. But, you know, thinking about your neighbours, are they vulnerable? Are they in need? Is there anything you want to do differently there? Or is there other community things that you want to join as a result of lockdown? So just giving that some attention too. Okay, so you might want to just make some notes about these anywhere on the page, or you might want to underline people who meet this criteria. So we're just going to take a bit of an audit of your circle of relationships. I'd like you to put a note by some of them, or underline them, or put an R. People who are radiators on your circle of relationship. By a radiator, I mean someone who gives you comfort, gives you warmth, gives you energy, someone who's on your side, someone who boosts your confidence, and someone that you just get a lot from when you're with them. So we call those radiators because they're giving warmth like a radiator does. So see if you've got any radiators. You might have one, you might have more than one, or you might say you actually haven't got one. And that's something that you might want to try and do something about if you don't feel you've got a radiator. And then on the flip side of that, there's drains. So they are people who sap your confidence. They make you feel low, or they drag you down. They make you feel drained. So it might be someone that is very needy or is in a difficult place, and your relationship is not particularly equal, and they're kind of sapping your energy. And sometimes that's okay. You know, we all have friends who are in difficulties, and sometimes they need some extra support. But it's important that you're able to provide appropriate support within your within your area of influence. What happens if you're not doing well yourself and someone is struggling and sapping your energy? That can have negative consequences. So it's okay to have someone who drains you, as long as you're getting topped up as well. But also, do you notice if you've got quite a few drains in your circle of relationships? So more than one or two might be indicative of needing to put some boundaries in place so that those people are not able to drain you as much. And then, is there anyone in your circle of relationship who is a role model? So maybe someone who you look up to, people you admire. You might not know them particularly well, you might just know them online. People who have achieved what you want to achieve, so someone that inspires you. They could be a mentor or a supervisor of some form. So someone you aspire to. See if there's anyone in your circle of relationship who is a role model. And you could put an RM by them or circle them or underline them. And then the next one is some no nonsense kick in the pants friends. So is there anyone in your circle of relationship who will really tell you what they think? So someone that you go to advice for when you know what you need to do, but you're not quite confident enough to do it. Someone who's going to give you a kick. Someone's who's going to give you confidence. Someone's going to really tell you the truth. So have you got any no nonsense kick in the pants friends? And then the next one is blockers. So these are people who actually stand in your way, people who don't want you to succeed. Someone who might be jealous of you or wanting to take you down. So just note if there's anyone in your circle of relationship who is blocking you. And once you have an awareness of that, that will help you to do something about it and to be equipped to bring about change. And finally, who's in your circle of relationship who can help you? So people who have information that you need, people who can help you achieve your goals. That may be an organization that can help you, or a colleague or a friend. So it's really important that you do have people who can help you. And not only that, you ask them for help as well when you need it. So it's all well and good having people who can help you, but if you never ask them, then you're sabotaging yourself. So have a think about anyone in your circle of relationship who is someone who can help you when you need it. Okay, so we're just going to move on to assessing your capacity to help others. Now, I think it's really important to assess your current situation before you start trying to help other people. I know when lockdown first happened, I felt like I really wanted to help everybody because I was in quite a good place. I was in a good bubble. I was happy at home. My job wasn't on the line. I had lots of good things going for me, and I was really feeling I wanted to help lots of people. And yet, actually, I needed to take care of myself and my close family as well. And we need to be realistic about the help we can give to other people. It's great to be able to do that, but we've got to give from a place of abundance rather than a place of lack. So have a think about what current commitments you already have. Have you been homeschooling? Are you a key worker? Are you working from home? Have you got elderly relatives? Because all of those things are existing commitments that may prevent you helping others in the way you want to. And also consider who can support you. So if you're going to be helping others, what about you and who supports you? And what can you do for others? So I guess there's always different things we can do for others, and that depends on us. So in the chat box, if you'd just like to write down a couple of ideas, what one thing are you doing for others now? Or what one new thing could you do for others? For example, you could write a letter to somebody. So someone who's perhaps alone, they'd be really pleased to receive a letter. You could cook a meal for somebody, and take that round. One person saying, doing our best to really listen to them. And I think that's a great example of really committing to somebody else, is to stop and really listen. And someone else is saying, remind them that I'm available when they need me. Yeah. So a quick text to say, if you need anything, I'm here. That's a great idea. You could send them a gift just out of the blue, just to say you were thinking of them. That's a great idea. You could offer to shop for them, particularly if they're self-isolating. You could offer to collect medication, for example. You could set up a Zoom call. And also, yes, give them time. Time together is so precious. Yeah, I really agree with that. Great idea. So even just sending an email or picking up the phone, asking how somebody is. I had one friend who I texted a couple of times to ask her how she was doing. I didn't hear anything back. And then I didn't respond. And then by the time she did reply, probably 2 or 3 months later, she said, I'm really down. I'm really struggling. It's been really tough. And I really wished I'd just kept texting then. One of the texts I do use quite a lot is, you're in my thoughts and prayers, no need to reply. And I feel that's sometimes the best way to just take the pressure off people, to let them know you're thinking of them, but that you don't need a reply, that you can just pass on your best wishes to them. Okay, so just think about who in your circle of relationship are your top priority. So where are they? Do you need to move them nearer to the center? So looking at your circle as a whole, what does it show you? Perhaps write a few notes. Does it look balanced? Does it look overwhelming? Does it look a bit sparse? What is it that your circle is showing you? So who could you move in closer to you at this time? Perhaps draw an arrow to move that person in closer. And what might that look like? Maybe it's someone who's really struggling at the moment, who may have had a bereavement, or who's just recovering from an operation. And you'd like to move them in closer. What would that look like in practical terms? What is it that you can do to bring them closer? And is there anyone you want to move further away from you because they're draining you, or because the relationship isn't serving you well, or they need help from someone else at this time, or that you just don't have the capacity? So anyone that you want to move further away because they're draining you. And if you are managing people who are drains, how can you increase your self-care to counteract this? So sometimes you have people in your inner circle or your family who are draining you, but that is just the way it is. But what you do need to do is to up your self-care when that's the case. So what can you do to up your self-care or get more support in order to support the drains that you have in your circle? And are there any people you'd like to connect with regularly? So have a think about something you could put in place regularly so that you're intentional about communicating with that friend or that family member. Okay, so as the webinar comes to a close, one final question. What actions would you like to take away, having increased your awareness of your circle? So just jot down some actions that you're going to do, having increased your awareness of your circle of relationship. And then if you can type in the chat box one action that you're going to do in the next 24 hours. That would be great. It's always good to set an action that you're going to do in the next 24 hours because you might actually be feeling quite motivated now. So now's the time to jump on that. So what action are you going to do in the next 24 hours? Okay, so things like ringing a friend, writing a Christmas card to somebody, taking some flowers round to someone, perhaps being intentional about your me time this week. So going for that walk, taking that bath, contacting a friend for a walk. It's always good to set those intentions because they're much more likely to have them happen. And yes, have a good and honest talk with a friend. That's a great idea. A really honest talk, not skirting around issues, but having a really honest talk with a friend is a really healthy thing to do. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this webinar. It's probably opened up lots of thoughts and questions, and it's probably provided an opportunity to go a bit deeper. So this is a work in progress. You're not going to have got everything planned or sorted as a result of the last 45 minutes, but I hope it's given you an opportunity to be to shine a light on your relationships and to be able to use this tool to move people into your circle or move people out of your circle, whatever you need to do to enrich your relationships and make sure you get the support that you need. So there's different ways of working with me, and I've just listed 3 different ways here. If you'd like to invest in some coaching, I can work with you on a one-to-one basis, either on Zoom or socially distanced walking and talking. You could either join one of my group coaching programs. They're called the Mum Boardroom, and they're currently meeting via Zoom, and I've got 3 places on one of those groups at the moment. And we meet on Zoom once a month for 2 hours and have group accountability via Messenger in the weeks in between meeting once a month. Also, I've put together a special webinar offer for tonight, and I'd like to offer a 60-minute Sort It session to go deeper into your circle of relationship if you'd like that, and that costs £99. And it may be that you have a different topic you'd like to get sorted, and so you can use the Sort It session to bring any topic that you want to that. So I'd really love the opportunity to work with you. If you've enjoyed tonight, then we can discuss things further, and I'm sure there'll be some time for any questions now, so I'll hand back to Patty. There's just ways to contact me on the screen now, and I'll stop my share.
Thank you, Jackie. You could actually leave the contact details or maybe the page with circle of relationships.
Yeah.
Someone joined a little later, so they might not have seen the the actual circle we were talking about in later.
Yeah. So
if we jump back, I think maybe to the second one.
How do I go back to that? Ooh.
But yeah, thank you. That definitely gives a lot of space for thought.
It does.
It probably doesn't help much immediately, but it helps with nudging something that probably we all unconditionally have known for a while, but we kind of didn't want to act on it, or didn't want to allow ourselves to accept in a way.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful to look at this. And I think from my perspective, I think somehow I have been doing this since the lockdown. I think I naturally found my way through this process without realizing. Nevertheless, it is quite a hard process to go through, because obviously relationships are something very important to most of us, and they a lot of times define who we are, because who we spend our time with and who we decide to be with definitely defines how we feel and who we are as a person. So having to go for a transition of, in a way, rewriting this relationship circle is often quite painful, but nevertheless important to think about, especially if like you said, your well-being and your self-care suffers because of this. It's really important to have a thought. And I think this is also a part of self-care, to think, where am I amongst those people, and how important they are, and what are the reasons why they're important, or why I am important to them. So is someone in the friendship circle because they just a friend, or because they actually, like, we know them as a friend, or because they actually really close to us?
Yeah.
And very meaningful to our lives. So yeah, very, very interesting.
I think the other thing is, no one can influence your circle of relationship except you. You have control over this, and no one can write it for you. No one can tell you what to do. You've got to own your circle of relationship. And someone likened it for me as a garden. So we all have a garden, which is our safe space. It's up to us to guard who we invite into our garden. And do we leave the gate swinging? And is there no hedge around the garden? Is everybody just pitching in to your garden without being invited? Are you overrun by people in your garden? Is that gate never shut? And it's a fantastic analogy of describing what you want it to look like. Is it so neat and prim and proper that there's nobody allowed in it because it's far too beautiful to be damaged by anybody else? There's lots of really fascinating ways to explore that. What boundaries look like as well. What boundaries do we need? And some people have good established boundaries and others have none, and that can cause problems.
Yes. What I realized for myself is that when we talked about role models, I think I've always been growing up with one, but I realized that recently I might not have one.
Outdate role model.
Or I changed as a person, and my life circumstances changed. So maybe the person who I would consider a role model would be different now to a few years back. But I kind of realized that, in terms of maybe what you read, when you have time to read, when you listen to podcasts, or if you're active on social media, probably the content you have chosen to follow a while back is not relevant anymore. So it's quite important to maybe revisit that as
That's true.
part of self-care as well, and think, what is it that I actually want to be listening to? Because we had a little chat before we started the webinar, and especially when you listen to the news, and a lot of times the information is so conflicting. And I think a lot of people feel like the leaders in the world don't actually act as role models either. And I think you kind of lose sense of hope and trust in an idea of a role model. But they of course exist, and they exist amongst us, and they probably nearby, but it's just having to reflect on this and think,
I think you've raised you've raised an interesting point there around, you know, the relationships might have been good at a time, but they're not serving you now. Or you want to rekindle what you did have, and that is possible as well. So it's like looking at who you are now and who you want where in that circle of relationship that's appropriate now, rather than just because it's always been the way, you know. And I think Christmas is that classic example of, you know, it's always the way, we've always done it, and nobody has a chance to think about it. And actually this year, you know, we can actually look at it afresh and do it differently, because it's not going to be the same for anybody. You know, nobody is going to have a Christmas like usual. You know, everybody's is going to be different. And, you know, hard as that is, and tragic as that is, it's also an opportunity to do things differently.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Does anyone have any reflections or something to share with us? I'm definitely going to look out for some new podcasts to listen to.
That's a great action.
Particularly, I find that when we talked about the intimate circle, and is there a relationship within this circle that we can work on, or improve to connect with these people more? And I always think about my eldest daughter, that I think she's probably the hardest to raise, because she's the first one, and she brings the new challenges to the table. And I thought that, I want to invest more into my knowledge behind how I can manage her emotions, and how I can manage my responses to her reactions. I'm going to look out for some good children's psychologists and like relationship therapists to learn more about that.
Have you heard of Care for the Family?
No.
They're very good. They put like lots of short videos out and free webinars, and they're really good for parenting things. Care for the Family.
Okay.
They run parenting.
There is one lady who's called Dr. Becky at Home. She's based in US, and she's very good as well at explaining emotions, and how our reactions to certain emotional distress in children can have an impact in the future, obviously. But she kind of visualizes how these patterns can sort of be programmed, but then have a detrimental effect in the future. And she's not patronizing parents at all, but I think what she's doing, she's really unpacking the situation to the smallest areas, and for me it helps to sort of understand things more, and also think about why I'm personally reacting in a certain way.
Yeah, what triggers us.
Change that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, very practical webinar, which Jackie's work always is. Very practical. And yes, if there is no more questions, unless there is something else Jackie would like to mention, we can skip to your last page for the contact details again, and we'll slowly draw.
I don't think I know how to do that now.
Oh, don't worry.
Oh, my bird's come back.
Someone is asking about further recommendations. Recommendations for what? Would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question, or
Too far away.
It's okay to write if you prefer? Further recommendations for, in terms of podcasts. And recommendations in terms of podcasts, Jackie?
No, that's something I was going to ask you about, Patty. I listen to coaching podcasts, but I haven't got any ones in particular that I can
Parents to support the children. I don't know, but I'll be looking out for some, so I can put a post on social media about what I found, and I can recommend a few.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There are many that I follow and listen to. There is one podcast that is really good when it comes to relationships as well. Is it Esther Morel?
Okay.
I think it's Esther Morel. It's a French lady, also based in the US, and she originated from working in couple as a relationship, but then she's moved on into different levels and different types of relationships, and again she's very good at kind of flipping situations over. When people make statements about the other person in the relationship, she flips the situation over, and she asks really powerful questions that make you reflect on whether your approach to a certain situation was necessarily correct or incorrect, or how you feel about that situation again when you see the other side of you. So yeah, she's really, and she's quite funny as well, so I recommend that one. Otherwise, I normally used to listen to entrepreneurial podcasts because they give me the boost and motivation and inspiration. But typically for parents, I didn't follow a lot, so I will research and I can share with people if you're interested.
That sounds good.
Is the one that you listen to, Jackie, or someone you particularly follow?
No.
That's okay. We can all have our own research.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure whether it's okay to ask this question here, but if you could please recommend any psychologist for parents and children.
We've worked with someone in Wolvercote who's a psychologist, and she's called Naira Wilson, and she was very good. Yeah.
So does she allow both parents and children to come to the session?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she specializes in Naira Wilson.
Would you mind to type it into the chat?
Yeah.
Becky?
Naira Wilson in Wolvercote. Yeah. I can't think what her business name is, but you'll find her under Naira Wilson. Yeah.
Lovely.
And if it's a school-age child, you know, CAMS is good to work through the school as well, so that school can be part of it. Children and mental health support team, something like that, CAMS.
Lovely. And also, if people are in need for a counsellor or therapist of certain such, they can always look on our app, and I think the link is available also on our website, to a search engine where you can type in your postcode and find local therapists. So if you need for someone to connect with yourself, not for your child but for yourself, then you can find someone local to you as well. That's all for tonight, unless there is some further questions. Thank you, Jackie. Obviously there is more info about you and your business on your website.
Yep.
And if people want to get in touch, if you skip to the last page again,
but it's not now. It's saying it's not going.
Oh.
You can find me on Facebook under Future Path Life Coaching, or my website, futurepathlifecoaching.co.uk, or on LinkedIn under Jackie Meek. Thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed being here with you tonight.
Thank you for delivering the session, Jackie. And yeah, I hope this starts a good conversation with yourself, everyone, about whereabout you lie in the circle, and if you're definitely in the center of it, because yeah, you're allowed to have your needs, and you're allowed to ask others to have them met. It doesn't have to always go out the circle. It you know, you need people to contribute.
Yeah, absolutely.
The center of it as well. Where are you in? Thank you very much for joining. That's already 8 weeks from this program. I can't believe it's gone so fast. And we're heading towards Christmas, and we will have something special for you in the last week of December, which we'll announce on social media next week. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next week. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.